This podcast contains explicit language.
And spoilers. Only if you suck.
Yes, hello, I'm Carlos.
And I'm Dave.
And we are two fat guys talk. We've removed games because we're now a refined, mature program where we talk about a variety of topics and cinnamon pecan cereal.
Hey!
Alright.
What the fuck?
Alright. Two fat guys talk. Episode 54. Here to explain why this should have been episode 55 is Dave.
Yeah, so like most people who do podcasts, eventually you will lose some work due to equipment malfunction. In our case, one of the cables linking the microphone to the computer was kind of loose and therefore added a whole bunch of static and other miscellaneous gobbledygook to all of our work we did that day.
Let's start things off with a segment we like to call, what's the segment name? How Two Fat Guys Would Do It, is that right? Yeah. How Two Fat Guys Would Do It. And our topic for today is how each of us would have done a cinematic Last Airbender trilogy if M. Night Shyamalan was not chosen. And actually there's been some news reported that he was not responsible for the bulk of many of the changes in it, that it was all corporate higher-ups and whatnot. But regardless, let's say we were in charge and we had pretty much free reign. What would we do? Which one of us wants to go first?
You go first.
Okay. Feel free to chime in on the ideas, because the whole point is that we
You're wrong.
kind of collaborate and add to each other. Here's how I would done. Here would I do Airbender trilogy English good. Okay. So in the cartoon, we started with a Katara who did not really understand water bending worth a damn, and Asaka who was in charge of shit, in charge of the men of the village, but wasn't really a warrior worth a damn. It took him like 3 seasons to become that. This is where the changes would begin. My Katara and Sokka would not start so down there, because this is a film. So the development needs to happen a lot faster, and Aang and Zuko are our protagonists, so the development has to center more around them. Doesn't mean we can't have supporting characters with arcs, which we will, but Katara, I would start her off as an established waterbender, and I would start off Sokka as an established fighter. I would even have Sokka, if I could, with the actor chosen, and it would not be a white guy. I would have him be physically bulkier, physically like an intimidating presence almost, because he's not a bender in a world of benders, and kind of like Gowry from Slayers, his business is physical fighting, right? So when Aang is discovered, and that would pretty much happen per normal, and Zuko comes to the village, instead of just kicking Sokka off to the side like he did before, there would be an actual fight going on. And Zuko would eventually win because, of course, he has firebending, and he's a good fighter in his own right, and Sokka just can't handle the 1-2 of it. And this becomes part of Sokka's arc. He wants to, like the proud warrior in him kind of wants to get a bit of revenge on this loss, right? One big change I would also do, and this one is probably not one you're going to like, the silver-haired princess, whose name I completely forget, who is central to the first season finale. Remember her?
Yep.
I would have her be a Southern Water Tribe person who goes along with them. And she discovers her destiny at the end at the north, and her death triggers things, which means there's a lot more weight to her loss because they've known her a lot longer. We could even have her be Sokka's girlfriend right from the beginning. A lot of how things would play out would be similar to the TV show for the first film. Obviously, we'd have to cut down some episodes, but I would keep the humor. The toilet humor would go. The actual funny humor would stay. That's one thing I did not like about Shyamalan's Last Airbenders. It was joyless. And I've had enough grim, dark, joyless movies, Zack Snyder. I don't want more of them. There would be a lot of humor in this. There would almost be a buddy cop style of humor. Sorry, I didn't hear it.
Christopher Nolan.
Chris Nolan. Yeah, exactly. So I would choose key events that happen to be part of the movie, like him discovering the air temple and that everyone's dead. Since Zuko is our other protagonist, we need to have him fight and defeat Zhao. And he has to actually defeat things. In Shyamalan's, he didn't defeat anything. He just taught a whole bunch of shit and did nothing otherwise. And we show their parallel. We show the parallel of Aang and Zuko development and the clash that happens eventually in the Northern Water Tribe. And that leads to Silver-Haired Moon Princess, whatever name, whose name I completely forget, dying. That's the big clash. That's the big thing that kind of impacts our heroes. And Zuko finishes his fight against Zhao. I remember his name, but not the girl. And that ends our first movie. During it, I would have things like Katara would already start teaching Aang waterbending, since she's already established as being capable of it. And her arc would be that she needs to be a little less motherly about things, because she really is, right? And Sokka's arc would be that, in addition to wanting revenge against Zuko, this guy who beat him, he also, he's a big warrior, almost brutish guy, and he discovers that he has a mechanical aptitude, like the Sokka in the show did. He discovers that, hey, I know how to build things, I know how to make devices, I know how to improve them, and we start to see the more mechanical side of Sokka that he uses to kind of back up his warrior fighting, like maybe makes improvements to Boomerang and stuff like that. We start to see this arc. The first movie is the one I gave the most thought towards.
Okay. I was going to stop you there.
Okay.
Let's do each arc in a different podcast.
Oh, you want to do second and third in the next one?
Second in the next one, third in the one after that.
Okay. Then I will get your feedback as to Carlos Alexander's The Last Airbender Book 1 Water Sports.
Okay. Well,
that would not be the title.
I like some of your ideas. I actually was doing something similar with the princess, but not that early.
How? You see, this is why we need her to be more important. We don't even know her fucking name. Oh, she showed up and died.
I'm not a fan of what you're doing with Sokka.
No?
No, not at all.
You want him to be useless for
no,
two and a half movies?
I don't want him to be useless. I don't think he was useless.
No, he's just very much not useful.
He just very much showed the side they needed to show of a non-bender surrounded by benders.
Sure, and he can still show that.
I'm also not a big fan of Katara being quite as formidable as you're making her from the get-go.
I don't like Katara, period. So you know how hard this is for me to do. People are like, oh, she was the emotional heart of the show. Actually, she was pretty stupid. She got them in trouble like as many times as Sokka or Aang did, never apologized for it, and was in fact encouraged. She was so fucking dumb. Holy shit. So dumb. But, again, them being capable to begin with removes the need to build that formidability into them through a show. A show can do that. In the show, it is just fine that they started that way. I would have wanted Sokka to have been a better fighter earlier than he eventually became. But whatever. The fact is they still grew with the show and they still ultimately became Batman. I would start them off as Batman because that gives Aang someone to teach waterbending to right away. That gives Aang a physical guardian. And that gives us an interesting contrast that we can use in a movie. And that's that the more physical Sokka, in my example, would learn the ways of technology, of science, which aren't things that come naturally to him because his whole life his father charged him with protecting the village, so he basically made it his business to be a physical specimen. We get a better contrast for the limited amount of time and the different medium we have in film, which is why I would have done that. But I want to hear what you would have done.
Okay. To start off with, I would keep the beginning part of the cartoon in the movie. Have their village attacked. I wouldn't turn Sokka into the warrior you...
Hang on. Just say your idea. The comparison isn't to mine. It's to the original series.
Fair enough. So, Katara would be pretty much at the same level that she's at in the cartoon. maybe a little bit better because she was pretty damn weak. Maybe she's been practicing in the background for a whole bunch, and she's not as formidable as she ends up by the end, but she's at least able to do, her whole water whip thing, stuff like that. She can actually fight a little bit. But Sokka's still very much still her defender. As far as things go, he is still the alpha male in the village, in charge of all the children, sort of thing. I'd still have them cause Aang breaking out and everything else, but where I would change things is at this point, Sokka would still only have his boomerang and his pole arm that he had. He would go with Katara and Aang into the ship, and that is where they would be assaulted by Zuko and the other firebenders. My version of Avatar would be darker because there would be visible death. Not.
I didn't say a thing.
Yeah,
I simply helped a little bit.
I know. Because I think injury and death is needed, at least for my version here. I would have Zuko's...
Yeah, we'll compare ours after you're done.
I would actually have Sokka's introduction to technology and its usefulness actually happen in that ship. There were the traps that locked them in. In my case, I'd turn the lockdown trap into an actual physical spike trap. Actual deadly traps. The Fire Nation locking people in the ship actually made little sense to me. They were brutal. The traps would be lethal traps. So, I would have, Sokka's losing a battle against one of the minor firebenders, and then triggers one of the traps, and right in front of him, he causes the death of one of the firebenders. You could lower that down to injury, but the fact that this mechanical device helped him defeat a firebender that he couldn't with his own physical abilities would trigger his interest in technology. How can I use this to kick some ass? At the same time, you'd have Katara and Aang fighting together, and at that point, Aang would realize that he can learn some stuff from Katara as far as waterbending, and she would start to see how she can use waterbending better in combat, therefore increasing her role. I would actually get rid of the part where Aang is captured by them. I'd have them just get away at that point. Maybe even have Aang smack Zuko against the ship or something, therefore angering Zuko to really want to get him now. Now it's personal versus... Now it's more personal.
Even more personal.
From there, I would actually go directly to the air temple. And I would have Zuko behind them every step of the way. I'd actually give them the blips. I'd have them already have the blip technology.
Already have the blips?
Not the bomb technology, just the blips. Therefore, giving them an easy way to continually stay on Aang's trail. You add a lot more immediate danger that way. So Aang wants to go to the air temple as a place of safety.
Should Zuko invade that village in a blimp already?
Which, the air temple or the water?
The water tribe, southern water village.
The water tribe, I would actually leave most of the water tribe. The actual town, you'd introduce a couple people, but then you'd leave. Depending on... You could do anything from the village is enslaved to is wiped out, depending on how dark you want to make this. I'm not hard-coded for any scenario there. You can do whatever you want with the... I'd actually even remove Katara's aunt from the things. She's a minor character. I don't really need her in my story. It could literally be Sokka, Katara, and the kids are all that's left of this village. kind of in a Peter Pan-esque scenario. All the adults have either died off or been taken by the... Maybe that... Yeah, that could have happened. The air temple is where shit would get real. In that Aang would get there, and there would be no holding hands going around, introducing different air temple things. There would just be bodies everywhere. Corpses, of course.
Well-preserved bodies over 100 years.
No. The skeletons. But they wouldn't just be in one room. They would be all over the place. And Aang would freak out. He would see Zuko and the other firebenders in the distance, and he would avatar on their ass. You wouldn't say that they're dead. It would be pretty much implied, but only Zuko and Iroh would show up after that. They'd have a little blimp that they had recovered. I would keep Iroh the way he was in the show, trying to give Zuko balance and being the understanding one. But Zuko would have reason to want to get all of them in the end. It wouldn't just be, I'm hunting the Avatar. I'm hunting the Avatar's entire party. I would also I'd have people actually living at the air temple. Not firebenders, but that's where I would introduce Suki. Suki, I would actually wipe out the whole friendly village thing. In my version, the Fire Nation would be kind of a scorch and burn. They would be a lot more of a brutal warlord sort of nation. It wouldn't be coming in and taking over the territory and keeping people as slaves. It would be coming in and taking the territory and get out or die sort of thing. So Suki's village would have been destroyed, and they went to a place where firebenders don't normally go. Therefore, an air temple. And at that point, I'd even have that it be there that Suki gets captured.
That only happens like in the 3rd season.
I know.
So you need to elaborate that Suki is getting captured, because that didn't happen in the first one. So continuing on.
From Suki getting captured there, you can have a little bit of a initial interest between Suki and Sokka.
Sukaki.
No, never do that again. From there, I'd actually have them lose Appa, have him disappear on them, and I'd have them then meet that one firebender master in exile. I would actually have there a scene with him training a little bit. I would still have Aang end up injuring Katara, just to keep the whole firebending to the last movie. Then they'd head for the Water Temple, or the Northern Water Tribe.
And how does that play out?
Northern Water Tribe plays out very much like the cartoon. They get there. Sokka, because he is more formidable, he actually they're having problems with firebenders getting in. They're not just out there continually attacking them. They're strike parties coming in and trying to take out the chief and the other Water Tribe members. So Sokka actually shows them a modified version of the traps that the Fire Nation use. And after it's shown to work, he puts Sokka in charge of his daughter. She's still going to die. Probably not as... I wouldn't do it as corny as the cartoon. I would have it that, she actually falls. Maybe Zuko actually ends up killing her during the fight with Katara. But Aang wouldn't be captured. That's pretty much...
Okay, so remember how I said Grimdark was really pissing me off? Oh my god! Okay, so let's, here's the thing. There are elements of yours that I like, that I would actually roll into mine. I kind of like the idea of their village getting wiped out, except I think I would, the idea I would take from yours and put into mine would be that their village was wiped out. I'd probably do it beforehand, and they're just living there on their own. And that would mean that Sokka wouldn't have to abandon all these kids to go on his journey, or Katara be the only waterbender healer. Because of course, in my idea, she's already at that level.
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't be abandoning the two best people in the village wouldn't be just up and leaving. They would be leaving nothing behind. They have nothing to lose to go for this. And I kind of like the idea of all of them going onto the ship at first either. I'm not sure what kind of weird pharaoh ship with all these traps Zuko's piloting is. Words.
It's not. It wasn't Zuko's ship though. That was that ship that was stuck. The one that shot the flare up, captured them in the ship, shot the flare up to signal any surrounding firebender ships.
Okay, fair enough, but I mean, what's weird is that this ship, it's like a tomb with traps in it. And I'm not sure what kind of ship would ever be built like that. I like the idea of Sokka learning from the ship some kind of technological edge and being like, and then 2 + 2 adding up in his mind. I like that. I really do.
Well, I say a deadly trap. You could change it to be maybe just a capture trap.
Sure, and I like the idea as well of the Fire Nation already having access to advanced technology that we saw later in Season 3. I like that as well. I like them having hot air balloons. I like the idea of Suki being at the air temple. I would roll that into mind by her being a competing love interest for white-haired moon princess girl,
and that's fine.
Who ends up dying at the end, and now it's kind of an Eris and Tifa situation where Tifa's like, okay, my rival's dead, and she meant something to me too, and now I'm confused about how I feel. Let's go and ruin the story with another 40-hour game that nobody cares about. I would not want to see your grim darkness, though. Holy crap. So you want Zuko to have no reason to join them later, basically. Because you're killing his men, he's killing their friends, they really despise each other at the end. Zuko has to be somewhat redeemable, and they have to be redeemable in his eyes, too, for them to ever get to that point. Which is why I don't like this yours is very violent, and the Fire Nation's a violent nation, no doubt. But at the same time, we can show this through some of the narrative. We can show the excessive bits that won't make this R-rated by insinuating that they've already been done. I actually do like all the skeletons at the air temple. I actually like that. That's cool imagery.
Okay. I can resolve a couple of these issues very easily. Okay, you want to wait for Zuko to be able to still be redeemed and come to conclusions of, right versus wrong.
Keep in mind, they have to also meet up to his standards. He can't think they're going to murder a bunch of Fire Nation people for no reason. Zuko's whole point is, the Fire Nation are my people. That's why he joined them in the end, so that his people wouldn't become known as slaughterers.
Now, you could introduce the idea that Zuko is not, completely heartless a little bit earlier in the show. So maybe instead of having their village wiped out brutally or anything else, maybe he actually has the village imprisoned so they'd be able to actually have food, sort of thing.
And that would be an arc that resolves later, where they learn that he's actually kept them treated well enough.
Yeah, I mean, he could actually say, I had them taken away so that they wouldn't starve. That simple line would turn Katara and Sokka's anger at it to more confusion of, well, you imprisoned our people, but they didn't die.
It's a bit more wary. They're like, maybe he's not horrible?
And maybe they shoot down the blimps. They don't kill the people on it. I mean, it's very easy to take it from, R-rated or 18A sort of thing and soften it a little bit to become more family-oriented. I'm okay with that.
And I like a lot of your ideas. I still want Sokka and Katara to kind of already be at the point where they're able to do things. Because that's too much screen time if they're not.
I don't think so. Because the way that I'm doing it, number one, by Sokka being influenced by firebender technology.
Which he still can be.
Which he still can be. He's not a full-blown warrior. He has been trained a little bit, but he's still improving himself. He's not a warrior, he's a warrior in training.
He can be a full-blown warrior and still improve himself.
I don't want to. I do not want him to be too formidable in the beginning. I still want him to grow to that point in the second film.
But here's the thing. We can't just put off all the growth for a future one. There still has to be an arc in this one.
Yeah.
In every movie, it's not a TV series, so the movie has to still wrap up with the character having had a beginning, a middle, and an end to their story. And for Sokka, it's way too simple, way too easy, and way too flexible to just be like, the beginning is he's a warrior, the middle is he's learning there are other ways other than that, the end is now he's a better warrior and also an adept thinker and tinkerer and idea guy. And we don't have to make him develop both skills, which takes up too much time. Or have him I suppose you could also have him be the idea guy. But the reason I don't like that for a movie is because why the hell was he left in charge of the village then if he wasn't able to take care of them? Which is an issue I had even with the original series. He was incompetent. He was laughably incompetent. He was their Timon and Pumbaa.
Granted, but even in the cartoon, he was left because he was a kid. They weren't going to take Sokka the kid out there. His dad had been gone for years.
And he had years to better himself. He had years to do what Iroh did in like a month or two, where it's just like sit-ups after sit-ups and build himself up so fucking buff. And
yes, but Iroh had already peaked, come back down due to, I don't want to say laziness because he was never really lazy, but he let himself go and then he got back. Sokka
is a 16-year-old kid.
Okay, yes.
In his prime.
But it was very obvious that his father hadn't been around for years and hadn't actually trained him.
He doesn't need training for this. He can even resent his father because he trained himself. And a guy whose whole mission in his head is, I must protect the village, is going to go out of his way to be the ideal warrior. That could even be part of his backstory. It's like, my father gave me token words about needing to protect the rest of the village because I was the last man left. I turned his token words into action, and I am now the guardian of these people.
Yeah.
Kind of idea.
I wouldn't turn Sokka into the formidable person that you're trying to.
Okay, but it's a good idea. It's just a really, really, really good idea, and there's no good reason not to do it. That's the thing. It resolves so many issues with adapting this to screen. And making Katara actually a waterbender of some merit to begin with, even if she's unrefined and needs some teaching to refine that, also solves a lot of problems with adaptation of her arc as well. Because now that doesn't need to be developed. We don't have to dedicate some of the movie towards this. That we can dedicate that to issues that she, like other issues that she has. It's like Han Solo didn't start Star Wars as a shitty bounty hunter. He was already awesome. His arc is that he had to realize that there was more to life than being awesome. He needed to have a purpose. There are a bunch of things about yours I really like, though. Like I mentioned, I like giving the Fire Nation this edge. I like some of the darker elements, but not some of the Freddy versus Jason elements, where they get crushed by traps and weird shit. I'm not a fan of that. And we ultimately end in the same place with white-haired Moon Princess girl, who I'm just going to assume her name is Jenny, just getting offed, and the arc completing with the Northern Water Tribe saved, and both Aang and Zuko have new journeys ahead of them. You didn't mention Zuko a lot, but I'm assuming that means that you're happy with his story progressing kind of like how it did in the show. Because Zuko matters. He's protagonist number 2, so...
Zuko would still be very much in his follow the Avatar. He just have a much easier job of it due to the blimps.
I think I would still have more growth for Zuko, because in the first season, they established him in episode 2 as our second main character, as our second protagonist, and it really took until season 2 for him to really build in that regard. I would start that right away. I would even give him a few encounters like he had in the Earth Kingdom in the second the second book to build up that side of Zuko.
Well, and again, with the whole imprisoning to save the village, that even starts that process.
Yes. He still needs to have an arc in the film, though. He has to have a conflict that needs to be resolved. And maybe he eliminates some of the doubt in himself, both as someone who can hunt the Avatar and as someone who's capable of leading the Fire Nation to greatness. Maybe he even starts to view his father as a less than worthy leader, because look how violent his father is, and look how caring he is. Well, look how caring I am. Look how much better of a leader I am. Maybe that can get to his head a bit even later. The movie lets us do something different with things.
Mm-hmm.
So combined, our movie is already way better than The Last Airbender will ever be. The movie, not the show. The show's awesome. You should go watch the show right away. Yeah, I've enjoyed this exercise, and next time we'll talk about how we would each do book 2, I guess.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Now, would you have one last thing on the first movie? Would it be 1 or 2 movies? And if it was just 1 movie, how long?
Just 1, which is why I want to eliminate some of these things that don't need to be in it. Like Sokka and Katara can start off in a place where they ended in this series at that point. And I think my ideal length is the ideal length for any movie, which is 2 hours. It can be shorter than that. If it goes longer, it has to be paced well. A breezy 2.5 hours is fine. Plotting 2 hours or even a plotting 1.5 hours is not. So I want things to go. I want things to happen. There can be some breather moments. Like, this doesn't have to be the Dark Knight where there was no time to breathe at all. There was no time to sit back and go, okay, let me process all this shit that's happening. But the ideal length would be 2 hours.
Okay.
And snappy, like, efficient filmmaking that's still nuanced and tells us everything we need to know.
See, I really think to do it justice, it would have to be 2.5, if not 3.
Yeah, this is why we need to trim some of this down and get it to that ideal length of 2.
2 hours is too short.
It is not too short. 2 hours is perfect if you do things right. And you do things right by following my lead.
Nope.
Because then we're going to have useless scenes and people being like, Christ, checking their watches and you're like, when is this over?
No, I think you could do 2.5 hours without making it plotting or boring.
Well,
there's enough there that 2.5 hours. 3 might be pushing it, fine, but I think 2.5 hours. I wouldn't lock myself to 2 hours if 2.5 was what I need.
Hey, 2 hours would be the goal, and if I could do 2.5 and still make it feel like it's not boring or plotting or that time isn't wasted, fine. The Hunger Games movies, in my opinion, they're on the longer side. They're both kind of 2.5 hours, as I recall, and they don't feel like that. They feel way shorter than that because shit progresses and it naturally leads to what happens next. It doesn't feel plotting or dull. So, but I think it probably didn't get planned that way. They probably planned for something shorter and then added to it when they realized they could do something longer. I would aim for 2 hours. 2 hours is perfect movie length, pretty much. That's pretty much what most movies tend to be, what most scripts are kind of made to support, the general 100 to 120 page script. So that's kind of what I want. Okay, Last Airbender. Dave, what the hell have you been playing?
Firefall, Guild Wars.
Guild Wars 2.
Yeah, well, I even loaded up Guild Wars 1 for the anniversary of my account. And a little bit of Ragnarok Odyssey.
Tell us about why we might be interested in Firefall.
Firefall, if you were a fan of Tabula Rasa's combat, you will more than likely enjoy Firefall's combat.
Now, I saw you playing it at Fragapalooza, and it was definitely... I was reminded the perspective was like Resident Evil 5 or Gears of War, where...
Shut your mouth.
Well, that was the perspective. What do you want? The perspective was the camera's a little off-center and your guy's off to one side of this middle of the screen.
Unless you go into first person.
Of course, but that's not what I saw. I was going to ask, how do you feel playing an MMO in that perspective?
I don't mind it at all. I mean, you do go into first-person shooter mode, depending on what weapon you're using, if you want to zoom in. It works just fine.
Oh.
Firefall, though, it is free to play.
Is it grindy?
Finally.
Can you solo bosses?
Bosses?
Can you solo the high-level content?
Fuck no.
MMOs continue to disappoint me.
You do realize what MMO stands for.
Oh god, this stupid argument. Yeah, I know what it stands for. Apparently other people don't, though, because none of it means you have to force it.
Here's the thing with Firefall.
It's not an MFMO.
Motherfucking...
Massively forced multiplayer.
A lot of games are like that.
Which is stupid.
Here's the thing. Firefall is pretty much a brainless existence. Its storyline is...
Like a jellyfish?
Jellyfish have intelligence.
They don't have brains, though.
Not as we understand it.
They have nervous systems. They don't have brains. They don't have brains that we see. Well, most jellyfish. So theirs is a brainless existence.
As we understand it, yes.
I mean, as we understand it. They have no brain. Do you think their brain is invisible?
Anyway, Firefall, as a free-to-play game, it is pretty much mindless. Go in, shoot some stuff, do a couple missions, and then get out, because there's not a lot of substance there. There really is not a lot of substance there, even as free-to-play goes. So, now that they've finally come out of beta after 3 years...
It's not a beta anymore in 3 years!
Hey, it's still the beta phase. Some free-to-play MMOs never get out of beta.
Retarded.
A number of ones that come out of like Korea and everything else, they never get out of beta. I don't see much happening with Firefall, to be honest. How about you?
You know what I see happening? I see Doom making a resurgence in my life. I'm going through the steps of getting Brutal Doom, a very cool mod people should look into, installed along with the high-res texture packs and custom music, and play Doom in a new way that seems very fun and very fresh and very much like what a Doom sequel should be. I've also been playing a Doom source port on my NVIDIA Shield called Doom Touch through all the iWads that I have because I bought Ultimate Doom, Doom 2, and Final Doom on Steam, so I have the iWads. Threw it onto my little device. Used the source port GZ Doom, which Doom Touch supports, and play Doom on the very responsive and to this day still highly surprisingly good NVIDIA Shield controller. Plays very fast and frantic, and I never played the Plutonia experiment as part of Final Doom. I played TNT Evolution, but not Plutonia. Plutonia's hard! The first level, they put you in a little room which is surrounded by ledges with shotgunners in the window above. You run forward through the hall and you encounter chain gunners and an archvile. Keep in mind, you have a pistol at this point. A fucking pistol.
Punch it to death.
Do you remember archviles? I want to see you win a punching war with one archvile. I'll even give you the Berserk pack. You're not going to win that fight. Unless you have pillars you can hide behind. Oh, and did I mention it's an open room and it's up on a ledge? Beside a chain gunner that it keeps reviving? Like, Plutonia is on crack, man. The first level alone has Mancubi, Revenants, an Archvile, chain gunners. No Barons, though. I'm very surprised the Baron did not show up in the first fucking room with me. Plutonia Experiment is fucking brutal, man. But I'm very much back in my Doom phase, which happens every few years. I play Doom and I debate editing levels, and then I never end up doing it. And then I look at other Doom likes, which means I gotta really try that rack demo at some point. Also been playing Hearthstone, the new Naxxramas wings as they come out. And on Wednesday, the Edmonton Fighting and community had 3 stations each set up at our local Wednesday night fight center, which is called Overclocked Gaming. Overclocked Gaming, and we had 3 stations each set up of Under Night in Birth EXE Late and Guilty Gear Accent Core Plus R. I entered both Ranbats, went 2 for 2 on Guilty Gear and 1 for 2 on Under Night, which is very impressive because the only match I won in Under Night was my second time I ever played the game. Under Night's very solid, kind of in between Multi-Blood and Street Fighter in terms of mechanics and playstyle. Beautiful game, easy to play and execute your plan. It's not exceedingly difficult to combo or do impressive looking things. Also, during that Ranbat, the Guilty Gear Ranbat, I managed to instant kill 2 separate people with 2 separate characters. So I was pretty happy about that.
I bet. Dick.
Yep. One guy, my friend of the show, Shiro, I guess let's say, I activated instant kill mode with Zappa, and he didn't realize that it's a grab or that I could run under his fireball, so he was Kai, and he threw out the big 3 hit, which gave me all the time in the world to run under it and grab him. And dead. He's like, no, is that the move that kills? Oh, son of a bitch. Pretty good. Shout out to Shiro. He ended up beating me, though. He is the one who eliminated me from losers. So.
Good.
Fuck you, good. Fuck. I'm hoping that Under Night catches on, especially here locally, and that Guilty Gear catches on. Anything to get us away from crappy-ass Street Fighter 4, which I still enjoy playing, but it's not very good at all. That's what I've been playing.
Anything you're looking forward to?
Diablo 3 Ultimate Evil comes out this next week, but I'm going to wait on it because I want that white PS4 for Destiny, which we'll talk about in a bit. Destiny, probably. Hyrule Warriors on my radar. Smash Brothers for 3DS is on my radar. And there's an indie game coming out here soon that I was looking at, but for the life of me, I do not remember the title. Something I kickstarted. That finally looks like it's shaping up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I want to say Chasm. I want to say it's Chasm.
Sure as heck isn't Cranmore.
Chasm is, it's kind of like Symphony of the Night, but the dungeon you're in is procedurally generated.
Right. I remember this.
Yeah. I think it's going to be released this year. I think.
That'd be nice.
It would be nice. Are you looking forward to anything coming out here?
Well, as far as things I'm looking forward to, I've got Diablo pre-ordered on PS4, Sword Art Online Hollow Fate, which is a digital download only for PS Vita on the 18th.
Can I ask you a question about that game?
Yeah.
Does it require you to be online to play it?
No.
How ironic! In this day and age of games that have no business having forced online, having it, that Sword Art Online does not.
Sword Art Online very much reminds me of
Dot hack?
a much better done dot hack.
Sure. I've seen 2 episodes of the anime. I liked the first. I was kind of iffy on the second. And I apologize. I still owe you watching the rest of that stupid series so we can talk about it.
We'll get to it. We're kind of busy with all the summer stuff right now.
God.
And then summer will go into fall will go into winter.
Oh no, what have I signed up for?
Told you that blood pact was not a good idea. But other than that, Destiny is still on my radar. I am definitely picking that up. I'm kind of interested now in the DLC for Infamous Second Son. Whereas before I really wasn't. I was kind of underwhelmed by it. The recent trailer for it has kind of got me interested. So we'll see what happens there. That's pretty much it for now. I mean, the PlayStation TV comes out in October, so I will have that as soon as I can to simply play Persona 4 Golden on my TV.
Indeed. I also want the PlayStation TV.
Though they had better motherfucking get Gravity Rush to work on it.
I sure hope so.
If they don't, I will be pissed off because that game, if any Vita game deserves a PlayStation 4
Remake?
conversion or release, it's Gravity Rush, because that game had the mechanics. It was fun, and it's stuck on the Vita.
Yeah, it's fun. There's only one problem. It's on the Virtual Boy.
Yeah, that's kind of how it feels. Even with Gamescom just having gone by. Once again, Sony went in there and, the PS4 is doing great, and we're doing great on the services, on games on the systems, everything else. Vita wasn't mentioned fucking once.
Well, no, because nobody cares.
They've abandoned it.
Did you ever finish Monster World 4?
No.
It's not that good. Everyone says it's great. Wonder Boy Monster World was way better. Sorry, I just had that in my head for some reason. Continue about the Vita being non-existent. The what? Haha, funny.
Pretty much. I mean, I'll use my Vita for the first time on Tuesday for Sword Art Online until I get my PlayStation TV.
Gotcha.
But
Gotcha.
Other than that, don't really care about anything coming on the Xbox. That's not entirely true, but fuck that. Is there anything to really talk about Gamescom?
I didn't really follow a lot of Gamescom, to be honest with you. Probably should have. Did you?
Yes.
Anything interesting? And if so, why are they not on the topic list, Dave? That's what this document is for.
I read the document. I added stuff to
You added one thing to it. And it had nothing to do with Gamescom.
No, actually it did. You're wrong. Under topics, third bullet.
Okay, fine, but make sure in the next episode, Doc, you actually add all that shit.
It's right there.
No, I mean the other stuff. Alright, let's get on to our gaming topics, although I suppose topics doesn't need to include just games. We don't have to have a section that's just us
We should still probably cut it up so people can jump through if they want to.
Yeah, if we're going to do that, I'd have a TOC with timers, and I'm not going to do that. Our podcast is a complete package. If people are bored by it, maybe... Oh god, I don't want to say just go listen to something else. We need our viewers. Keep listening. Don't be a fucking pussy. There we go. That'll keep them.
Speaking of being a pussy, your problems with Destiny.
Yeah, fuck that. Fuck that game. Fuck everything about it. Bungie has announced that they're going to add raiding to Destiny, which are going to be activities that can only possibly be done by groups of people. Cannot be soloed.
You see, that's not my problem with what they're doing there.
That's my problem. I already hate this about MMOs, and now Bungie, of all people, they're embracing it with fucking Destiny. Fuck them.
My problem...
Not even Diablo 3 does this.
My problem with the imminent raiding stuff they're adding in is that it's not just that you have to do content with a group of 5 people. It's that you have to do content with a group of 5 people who are in your friends list.
Same shit, different pile. No. It's still forced.
No. It's the difference between vanilla WoW, having to shout out and find people to do dungeons with, and the looking for group system.
The look for group system is great.
Yes.
You know what would be even better? If I didn't need a group.
I actually agree with you on that, so...
I think the looking for group system's awesome. I think it's awesome to be able to go, I feel like playing with people, but I don't want to talk to them. I'm not kidding. I really think that is great.
Yeah?
So yeah, the fact that Bungie is not only making it forced grouping, but now you're going to have to go onto forums and shit and talk to people and organize. I don't want to socialize. I don't want to socialize with strangers. I hate gamers already. I don't want to talk to them.
I do think, however, that this whole raid thing with only being able to do it with people on your friends list, I give it a month. I give it a month until they're going to have to revamp the system because people do not want to start adding random people that they find on forums, as you say, to their friends list.
WoW would say otherwise. WoW is still the world's most popular ass game.
And yet shitting players like mad.
And it's still the world's most popular game. So maybe you are a tad less cynical than I. I think it's gonna stick. And I hope I'm wrong.
Won't be the last time.
Funny guy.
Definitely isn't the first.
Speaking
Speaking of douchebags.
Speaking of John Romero,
Good segue, Carlos. Good segue.
yeah, thank you. John Romero.
The dude just keeps on opening his mouth on stuff he should shut the fuck up about.
Well, I agree with some of what he's saying. He's skeptical of VR. So am I. Congratulations. He thinks that PC's decimating console. In a way, this is not entirely wrong when you consider how awesome Steam is and the whole Steam box industry that's building around it. And the one big complaint about PC, which is that you plug something into a console and it just fucking works, which is a big one. It's a big one. Might go away with the new generation of Steam boxes where things just work anyway because they're built for each box. Actually,
you have a lot more optimism on the Steam boxes than I do.
Actually, wait a minute. I remember this. I actually like that John Romero said all this shit. He's not a douchebag. You're a douchebag.
No, I actually think that John Romero, in many cases, does open his mouth about things that he really doesn't have good opinions on. I mean, his reason for being skeptical of VR is that it's a new encroaching technology that doesn't have, according to him, any backing. Yet, we've got the Oculus, which has a shit ton of backing. We also have Sony doing its own Project Morpheus thing. This is not... We are seeing VR now taking on the role of motion controls of the last generation.
Oh, good.
Okay. That didn't work out so well. I'll agree.
And I only hope it works out just as well.
But to say that that he's skeptical because it has no following just shows that he's not following what's going on. There is support for the VR technologies that are being worked on right now. What he should be doing is stepping up and saying, hey, if VR is going to succeed, it needs somebody to do something with it. Maybe here's my idea. Not just, I'm not in it, so it's gonna fail.
Meanwhile,
get lost, troll.
Meanwhile, in John Romero's house, he hears you and he's like, look at this guy making fun of me. I don't talk that way at all. Daikatana's gonna make you a bitch. So, the thing about...
Thank you for reminding me that he was the one behind
Yeah, but he then came out later and he's like, that fucking ad was so stupid. Why did we ever do it?
The hell with the ad. The game... It's the game that sucked. It's nothing with the ad.
If the game was half as good as the vision, he wanted a 3D Chrono Trigger. That's what he envisioned for Daikatana, not oh, what's a clever title here? Not Quake 3 shit version, like, I don't know what even to call it.
Oh.
Not shit PS3, the shittening, I don't know. But I mean, like, I am okay with anyone who shits on VR. That's all I'll say about that.
I also don't agree with him on the freemium situation.
I don't remember what he said about the freemium situation. Oh, right. You know what I do remember? He talked about how the original Doom and its shareware model was ideal, where you release a chunk of a game, not more than just a demo. Doom Episode 1 was more than just a demo.
Yes.
It was a third of the fucking game, and arguably the best third. Arguably, the tech-based levels of Episode 1 are still tighter and better put together than Episode 2, 3, or 4. Although 4 probably comes really close. So, I mean, yeah, like, that's a good model. You get a huge amount of content and a huge incentive to buy more. Versus freemium, where you get a tiny amount of content and your incentive to buy more is that you just can't use your content at all until you do.
However, I would like to put a counterpoint to this whole thing. Back in his days, when he's talking demo, they charged for the demo discs back then. That was around the era when BBSs were only starting. become accessible for downloading the stuff.
Oh, okay,
so
fair enough.
You had to go in and buy the disc.
But that's not what he means by this, though. He's not saying charge for your demo today.
Oh, I know, but back in his day, that still made them money for that first third of the game.
Yeah, but then you could buy PC Gamer. Oh, God. Don't buy PC Gamer. They're terrible. You could go buy PC Gamer, and it would come with a disc with Shareware Doom on it. Or you could download it from a BBS, and it was all legal because they wanted you to do it.
That is true.
Hell, that Doom source port I talked about, one of the options is try the Shareware Doom. I didn't need to because I have all the iWads, but that's one of the options there to this day.
Yeah, and that was in the days when PC Gamer rose up and had the demo discs. That was the whole reason to buy the damn thing.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, cool, I got PC Gamer. There goes the magazine, here's the disc.
But the idea was that if we were going to play by the rules and you wanted to let me try Doom, you could give me the shareware version completely legally.
You know, when I first played Doom 1, and I realized it was the shareware version, I didn't realize the shareware version until after I'd gone through the whole first chapter. And it's like, oh, wait, this is a demo? This was a demo?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
You get a lot out of the shareware Doom, man.
Granted, that was still back in the days of boot discs and
you get there's even
conventional memory.
One of the game's 4 secret levels is even part of that. Yep. Imagine you finish shareware Doom and you go and be like, hey, wait a minute. There's an alternate way out of level 3? It's like Mario World, but with guns.
Yeah.
So, point is, John Romero's right and you're wrong. How do you feel about being wrong compared to John Romero, Dave? Here to tell us why is Dave.
I'm not wrong.
I think you're very wrong, Dave. I think you shouldn't make fun of me, because I made Doom shareware.
Sorry, John. You made Daikatana. Anything you ever did is hereby taken.
I named the character Hiro Miyamoto. So speaking of console exclusives versus timed exclusives, they're both exclusives.
Which one pisses you off more?
None of them. It's all about making money.
So as a consumer?
As a consumer, I wish everything was available on everything. So that already pisses me off. However, I understand the nature of competition and companies needing to offer us stuff, and while I would like a bunch of things in society in general to be a little more socialist, because, I would like more of people paying into things if they have the money to do so, and that includes me. Which wasn't me rubbing in any employment situation, by the way. I absolutely understand the nature of competition, and part of what makes game companies better is that they need to try to give you some kind of incentive. On one hand, there's the money talking, and Microsoft paying off Square Enix a little bit so that they get access to Lara Croft sooner. Then, however, there's a good side to this. That means Sony and Nintendo need to entice you in some way while you wait for the time part of this exclusive to run out. Or if it wasn't timed, then it was fully Xbox One exclusive. They need to incentivize why you may want their system first before you go get an Xbox One for Tomb Raider.
Yeah, Tomb Raider was the one that came to a head at Gamescom. At first, they tried to build it as a permanent exclusive, and then finally somebody at Square Enix very quietly admitted that, no, this is a timed exclusive. It annoys me for timed exclusives. Console exclusives really bug me because if I don't have to buy an Xbox One this generation, I don't want to. If I can stick to buying just the PS4, yay.
I think part of the Tomb Raider sequel's problem, though, is that it's a sequel to something. The game came out
each system.
Yeah, the game came out on every system, and now the sequel is locked to a console. And it's not even locked to a console the way Bayonetta 2 is. The reason Bayonetta 2 is a Wii U exclusive is because Nintendo is publishing it, and nobody else was going to publish it.
Yep.
And hey, Nintendo, I forgive them for this because they're giving me the first game too. So, giddy up. In this case, I think that if this was the first Tomb Raider game, the new one, and it was an Xbox exclusive, nobody would be pissed. If the first one was an Xbox exclusive and this one was also Xbox exclusive, nobody would be pissed. Nobody except Carlos is going to be pissed that Gears of War 4 is not available on anything but Xbox.
With games, though, what do you think of timed DLC?
Good.
Destiny.
Very strong play on your part, because now I'm going to be a total hypocrite. Say, fuck that!
I thought so.
Mm-hmm.
Unless
it's by like a week.
Yeah, not a year. I actually feel bad for Xbox One players on the fact that they're not going to have access to that content for a whole year.
Yeah, that is way too long. And I'm not going to say shame on Sony for that. I'm going to say shame on Bungie for that. Shame on Bungie, a company that frequently prides itself as having the gamer's interest at heart, for doing that to a significant portion of their player base.
And I'm throwing up the quotes on this one. Significant portion that sold one for every 3 PlayStations.
It's still significant. That's not a small amount, though. Like, that's not a small amount of people. Given Bungie seems to be in bed with Sony, why didn't they just make Destiny PS4 exclusive if they were going to do that, and not be money grubbing about it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of game devs,
money grubbing game devs.
Okay, so
next on the Shitlord Saga episode, doesn't matter.
Yeah, Game Dev Shitlord Saga, GDSS, originally called the Peter Molyneux Shitlord Saga, and wouldn't you know it, here's Peter Molyneux to explain why. Okay, so I just get Goddess, and I made Populous, okay? So you have to respect me. I made Populous, the best video game ever made. And then I made Fable, the best, most innovative video game ever made. Then I made Fable 2. And it changed the way people play video games. It's the best video game ever made. And I made Goddess. And it's a mobile game where it takes the best of all the other mobile games, where it forces you to wait, to do stuff, and to fuck Peter Molyneux. Has this stupid sack of cum has never, ever been impressive. He never delivers, and people still... Even this article you linked to on Geek.com about shitty Goddess, fucking... Even they were like, man, we still give Peter Molyneux some credit, even though he never fucking delivers. Then why do you follow him? Fuck... Like... How many times does he have to never, ever put up something impressive, or make any kind of insightful observation, or do anything of merit for the game industry? How many times does he have to prove himself incompetent before people stop following this fucking sack of shit? I don't understand. Goddess was supposed to be like his return to Populous, which I argue is the only good thing he's ever made. And what is it? A shitty fucking... Like, it's on Steam, but it might as well be a mobile-only game where you're limited by resources like all these other shitty mobile games. And it follows a free-to-play freemium-style bullshit-ass model. This is the thing he's been talking shit about, and people are arguing it's not even as good as some of the shitty freemium stuff you can get on iPhone Store. Fuck you, Peter Molyneux.
I really believe that Peter... actually was involved in the Dungeon Keeper EA fiasco mobile game.
It wouldn't surprise me. He is that stupid. Why would anyone rate the game badly? But if they do, all we have to do is make it so that their rating never makes it to the store. I'm Peter Molyneux. I'm a fucking genius. People say Kanye West is full of himself, okay? But Kanye West is actually a good singer. Peter Molyneux is not a good game designer. And he is way more full of himself than Kanye West is. Peter Molyneux is the real gay fish. South Park reference.
Okay.
They were... Cartman and Jimmy made a joke about, a gay fish. And then the only person in America who didn't get it was Kanye West, who thought everybody was calling him a gay fish.
Okay.
And he basically acted very egotistical. And he's like, I'm a literary genius. Of course I'd know if it was a joke. And he didn't get it, right?
Okay.
And then at the end of the episode, when Kyle was trying to tell Cartman that Jimmy thought of the joke and that Cartman just believed whatever he wanted and changed, like he was a pathological liar and he changed his memory based on that shit. Cartman didn't listen, but Kanye did, and he's like, oh my god, you're right. I am a gay fish. So then he went to live in the ocean. So, Peter Molyneux, here to explain why Peter Molyneux is just like a flask of semen is Dave.
I've played a number of his games. In fact, I've probably played most. And for all the promises that he never keeps, it's amazing what happens to series once he's gone. I mean, look at what happened to E3 and our post-E3 lookout. You and I were actually interested in the new Fable. Why? Because he's gone. We were kind of curious about the new Fable, but Peter leaves, and the series potentially stops sucking.
Suddenly the new Fable looks pretty good.
Yeah, it's just... The man reminds me of George Lucas. Has ideas that he can't pull off, promises the world, and gives you Jar Jar.
To be fair, George Lucas made one good movie. No, he's made a few. But the point of the comparison is taken, and a valid comparison. All right.
And then there's how journalists look at the world.
So Polygon is basically Kotaku Light and sucks, and I've been saying this for a while.
Yep.
So terrible civil rights abuses are happening in Ferguson in the States, in St. Louis, as we speak. Right now, these are happening. And depending on how quickly this gets resolved or doesn't get resolved, by the time you listen to this, which will be, we're recording this on the 16th, it'll be the following Wednesday, they might not even be resolved by then.
Probably not.
So Polygon, being the opportunistic piles of shit that they are, decided, hey, let's equate the horrible situation in Ferguson with something in gaming. So then they write an article that makes a decent point, albeit a no-shit Sherlock point about police needing cameras, and nothing else. It's in what is obvious clickbait, obvious fishing for hits amidst a crisis and a tragedy of epic proportions. Here to explain why it's horrible is Dave.
Polygon for a while now has been going further and further down the Kotaku hole.
And they hired Ben Kuchera.
Fuck.
Which doesn't help matters.
No.
I got banned from Polygon in 45 seconds flat after I criticized Ben Kuchera. 45 seconds.
Nice.
I have never been banned from something so fast.
You know, every now and then when I see comments, I wonder if this profiles you, that profiles you, based off what they're saying. So I'm not surprised.
I wasn't even offensive. I was a little curt. I was I wasn't nice, but I did not say anything ban-worthy except to criticize Ben Kuchera.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, what are you gonna do? They're comment Nazis.
Yeah, what do you do? I love. Why is it that every site that is very comment Nazi-ish is run by people who have no clue about anything in the history of anything?
It's called the internet.
I know, it's terrible. So this section is probably going to have to change the name because we're now Two Fat Guys Talk. This section is called Two Fat Guys Don't Talk Games. We're probably just going to roll this up into the general topic list next time because we're now Two Fat Guys Talk and we wear monocles and top hats and shit. So it's a little bit past FIFA. I don't know if this topic really applies anymore. But for a while, FIFA sponsors were trying to call FIFA on their corruption, but too much money's involved, so FIFA sponsors promptly gave up because why would a corporation ever do anything ethical or meaningful for society, right?
Well, and the article in question actually did point out that one or two sponsors have gone the moral route, dropped their sponsorship, and their rivals have gone in and killed them.
Yeah, and this is the world we've set up. Capitalism has huge benefits. However, it needs to be reined in certain points, because if we let it run amok, we get libertarianism, And when we get libertarianism, we get FIFA doing whatever they want. That's anytime a libertarian wants there to be no laws or taxes, I'm like, oh, so you want the world to be run like FIFA runs soccer.
Speaking of FIFA, the 2018 games are being done in Russia.
Yes, they are.
Now,
with the 2022 games being done in Qatar.
Which makes you wonder if that's going to have to change based on world events right now.
Nobody wants World War III. That's the thing. Nobody wants it. I heard it on a podcast. Dan Carlin, I think, said it. He said this quote. I've heard it before, and it still stands true. Nobody wants World War III. Russia could up and invade Poland right now. Every other NATO country would weasel out of NATO so fucking fast. It would make your head spin. How fast? Because their citizens don't want them to go to war over Poland. No offense to our Polish listeners. It's just a matter of fact of the world. U.S. citizens probably don't even know what a Poland is. No offense to the U.S. listeners either.
I don't think so, personally. I agree people don't want World War III. But on the other hand, specifically the U.S. and England and Germany would not take that. Like, if tomorrow Russia invaded the Ukraine.
Nobody will do anything. Ukraine's not even part of NATO.
I think they would step in. I do.
They would, with tougher sanctions and harsh words.
No, if Russia actually started a full invasion, I think they would do something.
You are perhaps more cynical than me on this topic, or less. No, less. It's less, because I don't believe that anyone will do that. And hey, to play devil's advocate, and to your point, people, mainly rich, usually white politicians, have sent their young to die over wars for years and years and years and years and years and years and years now. So who's to say that people won't send troops over to try to stop Russia to protect their political interests in the guise of the good for the Ukrainian people, which these countries ultimately actually don't give a fuck about.
While we say that nobody wants a war is profitable.
It can be profitable for governments and corporations.
Yep.
And not us. Which is why I will draft dodge unless we're being invaded by aliens and we need to fight. Otherwise, it's an existence event.
If somehow Russia invaded our shores, I would not dodge that draft.
I would fight.
If our borders were being invaded, that's one thing.
I would need to think that my life and or the lives of people very important to me were in danger. If I did not feel that, if I felt a surrender would save everyone, I'd surrender in a second. In a fucking second, I will betray all of my Canadian principles to our new Russian overlords. Because fuck war. And it won't get me anything. I won't benefit from it. If I thought the Russians were trying to invade Canada to, for some reason, wipe us out War of the World style, yeah, I'll fight, because I'm going to die anyway, so... But I'll be crazy, though. I will fight. Like, I will bite a fool in the dick. Like, I'm not even kidding.
Speaking of crazy...
So, I put the next 3 topics I put here on this list...
We've already finished covering
knowing
Ferguson.
that maybe you wouldn't be comfortable talking about any of them. And if you are not comfortable talking about any of them, I understand.
Well, the Israel versus Hamas.
What I put it as Israel versus Hamas 2 New Age of Blame, which is the greatest title ever conceived in the history of man.
I'll give you that. I've
tweeted this, and I still firmly believe it. Although lately, especially with Palestinians trying to help people in Ferguson, I'm still on the fence, but the wind is shifting me a bit more in another direction. I'm of the opinion that Palestine deserves its own state, and Israel has a right to defend itself. And that this is a big mess with a lot at blame on every side, and nobody willing to make it stop. But the Palestinian people are the greatest people suffering here.
The Palestinian people are the greatest ones suffering, and
They are suffering the greatest amount, I guess.
I'm going to, anybody who's Palestinian who's listening to this is going to hate me in a moment.
Mm.
They kind of have it coming. And here's why. The ability to stop what is going on is in their own people's hands as well. They are not doing a damn thing to stop Hamas from launching rockets.
I disagree. I think a lot of Palestinians are doing all they can to prevent from dying when they get targeted and they have nowhere to go and they try to go to safe spots that then get bombed.
And even then, okay, that school that got blown
UN school, yes.
That had rockets for Hamas in it.
You know what? I didn't see hard evidence of that. I saw claims to that and claims that human shields are being used. And don't get me wrong, Hamas is classified as a terrorist organization. I don't disagree with that classification because they've outright stated they want Israel wiped out. Fuck Hamas. But I've not seen the hard evidence that proves these claims. I've seen it claimed a lot. I've seen Hamas say, no, we don't. I've seen a lot of people say these strikes are not surgical the way Israel claims. Now,
that part I'm not going to argue. The strikes are not as surgical as they try and say.
At the same time, and this is the part where if we have Palestinian listeners, they're going to hate me now. I can't entirely condemn Israel entirely because they're one of the few places in that region where you can be gay or bisexual and not face a death sentence, where people of multiple faiths, including not only Jews, but Christians, Muslims, and a wide variety of faiths, including atheists, are able to live in peace together. Israel, in a lot of ways, is a bastion for a lot of what is good in the world, in a place where not a lot of good happens in the world. So I can't, and maybe, again, I'm a bleeding heart, left-leaning liberal type who listens to Greg Proof podcasts and would wear a beret if it looked good on me. I am that guy, and I still can't bring myself to condemn Israel entirely. But at the same time, the Palestinian people are suffering.
They are, and it's sad.
Israel can do more, and it won't, because in a lot of ways, war is profitable for it. Because their own people think they want that. And the protesters amongst Israel, they get silenced. They don't get killed, they just get silenced. Their protests never make it out.
I guess I'd just like to see or hear one time a group of Palestinians trying to hunt down.
Why would they do
Hamas.
that? Why would they do that, though? Why would they do that for Israel, who kills way more of them?
Because, again, Israel's thing is that you bomb us, we're going to hit you 10 times worse.
Sure.
If you stop Hamas from bombing them, they're not going to kill them.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much I believe that. Keep in mind, these people have been killed by Israel.
I know.
So even the ones who objectively step back and go, fuck Hamas, but how many people have Hamas killed compared to Israel? That's the thing. This is why this is a complex situation.
I realize
and why
that.
the Palestinian people need help. They can't do this on their own. In a way, Israel almost needs to win and conquer, and maybe there can be some semblance of peace then. And maybe that sounds
there's
maybe
no
that
peace
maybe
in an occupied
maybe not, but the solution. I almost think it would be better, and I don't want that to happen. What I want is superhuman powers so I can make these people stop, but I don't have that power.
Yeah.
I don't have the power to stop the Ferguson protests in the United States either, which we briefly touched on, which are horrible. This is happening in the United States. Police are throwing tear gas.
Very little international coverage.
Police threw tear gas at media and dismantled their cameras. On camera. This is the United States. Palestinians were giving advice to Ferguson residents on how to avoid and on how to deal with tear gas and occupations. Why is this happening? I am so furious over this. I think I'm losing sleep over the fact that this is happening. I have black relatives and black friends who both live in and visit the United States, and I am scared for them. I am frightened for them because of these racist, bigoted, white-ass cops. I'm ashamed to be of the same race as these fucking cops. I am ashamed. Why, when the fucking Missouri Highway Patrol took over the situation briefly, they showed what police are supposed to do. They marched in solidarity. They talked to the people. And then they were taken out of the picture again, and we got more cops and tanks and riot gear calling them animals, throwing tear gas at them, and refusing to stop looters, forcing protesters to stop looters themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And people say racism is over. Racism is alive and well on this continent, my friend, including this country, Canada. And it sickens me. I am so sick over this shit.
My thoughts are that, number one, the ability for police in both Canada and the United States to buy military hardware after it has been quote-unquote used is a very big mistake. I'm not talking about SWAT teams, because those are specialized teams that have to deal with shit. I'm talking basic police officers having access to military hardware, which they can then use on a civilian population. Number one, it's military fucking hardware, aka meant to kill many people as fast as possible. This is not a civilian peacekeeping or police force. This is now a trained killing force. They're not there to stop things. They're there to end it.
I like that comparison. They're not there to stop it. They're there to end it. They're
not. It's bad from a publicity standpoint. It's bad from anybody seeing a military force come down the road is fucking terrifying. It's not. You're not trying. Again, you're trying to end things through fear, intimidation, and outright brutality. And what we've seen on Twitter, Facebook, and everything else this last couple weeks has been that. It's been that intimidation. The get in our face and we are going to break yours.
It is nonsensical. It should not be happening.
And of course, where's Obama in this whole thing?
Obama is fucking busy talking about how people need to heal when there's still violence happening. This fucking guy was so naive, lost Congress, and refused to have the balls to take them on. This guy needs to do some executive ordering, and now. He needs to go fuck you. By executive order of the President of the United States, the United States military is going to handle the situation calmly and peacefully, and that entire police force is being suspended until a review happens. He needs to come down with an executive order saying no matter where you are in the country, if you're on the police force, you're wearing a camera on duty at all times. The way that town in California has, that cut down complaints by like 80%. That has to become so part and parcel with being police that no police testimony without video should be accepted for anything. I'm not even kidding. Outside of undercover operations.
Yeah.
Which you need to have. You need to have some provision there. I get that.
But I agree with you, all officers should be wearing a camera.
Every single one when they're on duty.
All of that footage should be available online to the public.
Yeah, I should be able to go online and see yesterday's police footage at my leisure. Anytime. For any city. On this planet. It'll turn into a somber podcast. Speaking of Robin Williams just up and dying.
You know, I've surprised a couple people this week with what I'm about to say, but I have a lot of respect for Robin Williams as an actor.
So surprising.
And I realize that depression is a disease. It's a mental illness.
It's a terrible illness.
However, my personal feelings on suicide is that
much how you advised me earlier, I advise you now. Use tact.
No, this isn't going to get me banned from crossing the border. Fucking coward.
Oh God. Well, I can't completely condemn that.
I say that because I've been affected by suicides before.
You and me both.
And even with the mental illness and everything else, I call you a fucking coward because it ends for you and it never ends for the people around you.
I get that stance because I'm conflicted about this thing. I was conflicted also when Jew Wario passed away. And maybe I wouldn't be conflicted if I was a bigger fan of Jew Wario. The thing about that is one side of me says coward. The other side of me says it's not that simple. And they're always at war.
I know.
So here's the thing about Robin Williams. I had some issues with him when he was alive about him stealing jokes and material from other stand-up comics.
Yep.
I also thought that there were a lot of movies that people love that he's been a star in that are wildly overrated. Patch Adams.
I love that movie.
Yeah, I know, and it pisses me off, and it kills me a little bit inside that you like that movie. Oh. I don't know what the fuck that noise was, but I'm going to hopefully get it out and edit. There was a lot of editing. You know, I missed the nipple in fucking Aesthetica.
I heard.
Did you see the nipple?
No.
It appears for like 0.5 seconds, but you pause it,
Ooh.
bam, nipple.
Ouch.
I'm leaving it. I'm leaving it in. I'll take out the parts in this where we got a little heated.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to get travel bans. I had some issues with Robin Williams when he was alive, but I can't deny that I enjoyed films like Good Morning Vietnam.
Yeah.
Films like Hook. Films like
Jumanji.
Jumanji's fun. Not my favorite film.
It's fun. Yeah.
Dead Poets Society.
Yes.
I forget the name of the movie.
Good Will Hunting.
Not Good Will Hunting. Robin Williams played a gay radio host who did a show called Noon at Night, and he was investigating the story of a woman whose son was like grievously ill, and it turned out the woman was just pretending the son existed. I forget the name of that movie. Somebody out there knows the title to this movie, but it was a fascinating film, and he played a really good role in it. So the guy could act, and sometimes he couldn't, and there were allegations of joke theft, but I also liked some of his stand-up, and they admired a bit, because I don't know how much of that was his own material. But at the same time, let's say that if I can defend Lance Armstrong for doing more harm than good in this world, I can defend Robin Williams, or more good than harm,
Yes.
Then I can defend Robin Williams for doing more good than harm. His suicide leaves me always contemplating things like, you know, this guy succeeded, and he was still unhappy. And there are times in my life where I feel content but not happy. Now, the part of me that will never let me ever end it that way, because I don't want to hurt the people I'm around, will not let that happen. I promise you this solemnly. Unless I am suffering really bad and there's no other way out, I'm not gonna off myself. But that's me. I don't know if he could be, his suffering might have been 100 times worse than mine, which is why I'm not sure I can condemn, and yet I have a hard time separating myself from these thoughts that it's a tough thing to talk about.
I say suicide is cowardice, but I also am a big supporter of assisted suicide when, you know, you're brain dead or your quality of life is shit. Mm-hmm. So I know there's a contradiction there, but yeah, no, just regular suicide, it bugs me.
What is a man? A miserable little pile of secrets.
Yep.
I should say that like Robin Williams. Well, what's a man? A miserable little pile of secrets.
We'll miss you, Robin.
Yeah. A shame. A shame that the media fucking ghoulishly stalked his daughter instead of, you know, going to Ferguson and being journalists. Not sure how good that would have done them, considering that they were getting attacked.
Never accuse journalists of being journalists.
Yeah.
That's all I've got in my plate.
Oh, this is a long podcast. I think the write everything down so we know what we're talking about format works.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
So far.
We're going to continue the numbering, but we are now Two Fat Guys Talk. However, you'll still find this at tfgtg.blogspot.com. We're keeping the G in that. And I'm registering domains, and I'm probably going to register Two Fat Guys Talk and Two Fat Guys Talk Games still.
And there still will be very heavily game-centric podcasts.
Because we're both gamers, and we talk about games, so it's just that we talk about a lot of things. So, yeah.
This has been Dave.
Carlos. Two Fat Guys Talk.
So if you've liked what you heard, you want to leave us some feedback, you want to give us some criticism, whatever, our podcast site is tfgtg.blogspot.com, where you can also find the feed link and our YouTube channel.
You can also find us on Twitter at TFGTG. Yeah. There's no way to continue that. So
There's no way to continue that sentence.
please leave us some feedback. We accept good and bad. We will usually respond, seeing as we have such a small group.
We do have thousands of millions of followers, so we might not respond to you right away.
Sure, let's go with that.